In 2020, Netflix released the documentary Athlete A, exposing the shocking sexual abuse scandal within the USA gymnastics team. This case not only had a profound impact in the United States, but also highlighted one of the darkest moments in the history of gymnastics worldwide. It wasn't until 2016 that an article finally brought this horrifying truth to light. This was considered the biggest scandal in US sports history, and perhaps even in the world. So, what exactly happened that year? Let's turn back time to uncover the truth behind this scandal. In the world of sports, the US women's gymnastics team was dominant. Whether at the World Championships or the Olympics, they consistently won numerous medals and produced many world-famous athletes. Their immense success attracted lucrative sponsorship deals, turning the gymnasts into money-making machines, generating massive profits for USA Gymnastics. However, just before the opening ceremony of the 2016 Rio Olympics on August 4th, the Indianapolis Star published a shocking expose. The article, titled Out of Balance: How USA Gymnastics Covered Up Sexual Abuse, revealed that coaches had been sexually abusing young gymnasts within the national team. Even worse, every time victims tried to report the abuse, the cases were swept under the rug. Had this article been published at a different time, it might not have gained such massive attention. But with the Olympics in full swing, this news spread like wildfire, attracting worldwide scrutiny. The Indianapolis Star seized the moment and followed up with another article, reporting that sexual abuse was a widespread issue in U.S. gymnastics. Their investigation uncovered that, over the past 20 years, at least 368 gymnasts had fallen victim to abuse. Unlike other sports, gymnastics involves very young athletes. Many start training as early as 4 or 5 years old and compete at a professional level while still in their teens. The psychological and physical damage inflicted on these victims was unimaginable. Even more disturbing, the perpetrators were not just coaches, they were also the team's doctors. However, the Indianapolis Star initially only presented estimates without naming specific abusers. Since many of the incidents had happened over a decade earlier, gathering evidence and conducting a thorough investigation was extremely difficult. As the scandal spread, some skeptics began to question its credibility, suspecting it might be a sensationalized media story. After all, no victims had yet come forward publicly. But at this critical moment, a woman named Rachel Denhollander broke the silence. After reading the Indianapolis Star's report, Rachel immediately emailed the newspaper, revealing that she had been a gymnast and had personally suffered abuse at the hands of the national team's doctor, Larry Nassar. She stated that Nassar had molested her repeatedly since she was 15 years old. She recounted that even when her mother was in the same room, Nassar would position himself strategically to continue his abuse out of sight. At the time, she was too young to understand what was happening. Nassar reassured her that he was a medical professional and that his actions were legitimate treatments for her injuries. Years later, Rachel realized she had been a victim of a serious crime. She attempted to report Nassar, but senior officials within USA Gymnastics covered for him, silencing her allegations. Forced into silence, she did not give up. After retiring from gymnastics, she became a lawyer, secretly collecting evidence for years. When the Indianapolis Star finally published their expose, she knew this was her chance. Rachel publicly revealed her identity, becoming the first former gymnast to accuse Larry Nassar by name. She encouraged other victims to speak out. Shortly afterward, 2 more gymnasts reached out to the Indianapolis Star. One of them was an Olympic champion. Their testimonies matched Rachel's story. They had all been sexually assaulted by Nassar. One of the survivors recounted that Nassar abused her from the age of 12 or 13 until she was 18. Like Rachel, she initially did not understand that what was happening to her was a crime. It was only years later that she realized the truth. At this point, the Indianapolis Star knew they had found their main perpetrator. They shifted their investigation's focus from coaches to Larry Nassar. As their research deepened, the extent of Nassar's crimes became clear. Over his 20-year career, he had abused hundreds of gymnasts. Shockingly, despite his years of misconduct, Nassar remained a respected doctor, avoiding any serious consequences. To outsiders, he was a trusted professional. There is little public information about his early life, but it is known that he was academically gifted. At 15, he became an assistant coach for the North Farmington High School girls gymnastics team. He secured this position through family connections, as his brother was the school's sports coach. However, in reality, he was only performing minor tasks for the team. In 1981, after graduating from high school, Nassar enrolled at the University of Michigan, majoring in kinesiology. While studying, he gained experience by assisting the school's football and track teams. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in 1985. Just 1 year later, in 1986, he was hired as a trainer for the U.S. national gymnastics team. At the time, he was relatively unknown. He continued his education, completing a master's degree before earning a doctor of osteopathic medicine degree from Michigan State University in 1993. It can be said that Larry truly demonstrated exceptional skill and professionalism. He went on to complete 6 research theses on the treatment of gymnastics injuries and even patented an ankle support device. Since 1986, serving as the team doctor for the national gymnastics team, Larry participated in the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, the 2000 Sydney Olympics, the 2008 Beijing Olympics, and the 2012 London Olympics. Beyond his role with the gymnastics team, Larry also served as a physician for Michigan State University, an assistant professor in the Department of Family and Community Medicine, and a doctor for a gymnastics club in Michigan. The USA Gymnastics Association awarded him numerous medals. Larry was even honored in the Michigan State University Hall of Fame. He became a prominent figure in the world of gymnastics, both in the U.S. and internationally, earning great respect and becoming a model of success. Steve Penny, former president of USA Gymnastics, once praised Larry for playing a crucial role in the success of the U.S. gymnastics team, both on and off the field. His contributions over the years were invaluable and would continue to be so. In 2012, John Geddard, head coach of the U.S. women's Olympic gymnastics team, also commended Larry as an extremely professional and dedicated doctor. He cared for athletes far beyond his responsibilities. He is perhaps one of the most respected gymnastics experts I have ever met, Geddard said. Similar praises were abundant. Many gymnasts even mentioned how thoughtful Larry was and how deeply he cared about their lives. Larry's massage techniques were highly professional. He was a good friend of mine, someone I could confide in about anything. However, the truth was that since 1994, Larry had been continuously abusing the gymnasts he treated. The number of female victims reached into the hundreds. What was bizarre was that this abusive behavior, spanning over 20 years, went unnoticed by outsiders, including Michigan State University, the Community Hospital, USA Gymnastics, the American Sports Medicine Association, and the Olympic team. So, how did Larry manage to do this? Was it truly possible that no one knew about it? Through investigations, some victims had come forward to accuse Larry. Yet, whether it was the university, the association, or the national gymnastics team, all turned a blind eye to these accusations, even actively covering up the incidents and failing to report them to U.S. authorities. Even when some victims spoke out publicly through other channels, faced with Larry's professional, trustworthy, and good-natured image, no one chose to believe them. Some media outlets even outright claimed that these athletes were fabricating stories for attention. As a result, for many years, Larry continued his crimes while living freely. It wasn't until the Star published an article exposing Larry's crimes that the truth came to light. More and more former gymnasts stepped forward to accuse Larry and bring him to justice. All of them stated that he had exploited his position to abuse them repeatedly. As the number of lawsuits against Larry grew, Michigan State University fired him and quickly severed ties. By November 22, 2016, Larry faced 50 complaints and charges. If these crimes were proven, he would face life imprisonment. However, Larry did not plead guilty to all charges, maintaining his innocence and posting a $1 million bail for release. On December 16, 2016, U.S. Authorities officially arrested Larry. This time, they made an unexpected discovery. The FBI found 37,000 child pornography images and a video of him assaulting a minor on Larry's computer. Given the severity of his actions, he was denied bail. As news of Larry's arrest spread, many former gymnasts broke their silence. Soon, 88 women testified in court about their painful experiences. Their testimonies encouraged more victims to come forward. Ultimately, the number of witnesses reached 156, and the hearing lasted 7 days. Judge Rosemary Aquilina was outraged by Larry's heinous actions and encouraged the victims to share their stories. Cully Stevens publicly recounted her traumatic experiences. Notably, Cully was neither a gymnast nor a patient of Larry. Her parents and Larry were friends, so the two families were quite close. Cully revealed that Larry first assaulted her when she was just 6 years old. At the time, he behaved inappropriately in front of her, which later escalated to physical contact. Back then, she didn't know it was wrong. At age 12, Cully told her parents that Larry had done strange things to her, such as rubbing certain body parts against her legs and thighs. Sadly, her parents didn't believe her, thinking she was lying and even forcing her to apologize to Larry. It wasn't until years later, after Larry's arrest, that the truth came out. Cully's father, upon learning the truth about his daughter's abuse, was heartbroken and died from a reckless act. At the trial, Cully told Larry, "Little girls don't stay little girls forever. They grow up, become strong, and ultimately destroy your world." Former U.S. gymnast Helena White shared that Larry had harassed her since she was 12, even in front of her mother. Helena emotionally stated in court, "What kind of person has the audacity to sexually assault a child in front of their mother?" Olympic champion Michaela Maroney revealed that Larry had abused her since she was 13. He always found excuses to perform unnecessary treatments on her, a pattern that continued until she retired. Maroney said, "Our silence allowed the evil to continue. It's time for him to face the consequences." She also encouraged more victims to come forward together. Olympic champion Aly Raisman also spoke up. She said, "The girls you destroyed have united into a powerful force, and you will lose everything. Times have changed. We are no longer hiding. We are bravely speaking out and telling the truth." Olympic champions Gabby Douglas, Jordan Weber, and renowned U.S. gymnast Simone Biles, who has won 32 Olympic and World Championship medals, all revealed that they had been mistreated by Larry. In addition to the female victims, a mother named Donna Mark Combs appeared in court on behalf of her daughter, who had suffered depression due to Larry's abuse and ultimately died from a reckless act. During the trial, there was even a moment when a father, whose 3 daughters were all victims, demanded a private moment with Larry. There were countless accusations against Larry. Many women shared that even though they realized they had been harmed, Larry's powerful position made it impossible for them to fight back. Yet, faced with overwhelming direct accusations, Larry still refused to admit guilt. He insisted, "I am a good doctor, and my treatments are effective. Those speaking out now are the same people who once praised me." Larry even prepared a lengthy plea letter, claiming that the so-called victims were fabricating stories for money and fame, hoping the judge would see the truth. Judge Rosemary didn't even glance at the letter, tossing it onto the table. Her action was met with unanimous applause. Before sentencing, she told all the girls, "You are no longer victims. You are survivors. Leave your pain here. Go out there and pursue your own glory." Judge Rosemary's sentence for Larry was like a sharp sword. His crimes were deliberate, cunning, and utterly heinous, leaving no room for leniency. Larry was sentenced to 175 years in prison, ensuring he would never live to see the day of his release. After the verdict was read, all the witnesses present in the courtroom stood up and applauded the judge's decision. In reality, there were many more charges related to Larry, and trials were held in multiple courts. Ultimately, Larry was convicted of possession of child exploitation materials and sentenced to 60 years in federal prison. Additionally, He received 175 years and 125 years in two separate Michigan state courts for various sexual assault charges. Larry repeatedly appealed, but all his appeals were rejected. Although he received a fitting punishment, the largest scandal in sports history was far from over. As mentioned earlier, over nearly 30 years of committing crimes. Some had come forward to accuse Larry, but their efforts had yielded no results. In other words, high-ranking officials from the national gymnastics team, schools, and legal departments had covered up the incidents to avoid public scandal. To put it bluntly, they had colluded with each other. As a result, Michigan State University, the UVS, Olympic Committee ***, USA Gymnastics, and the Twistars Gymnastics Club all faced numerous allegations. Subsequently, USA Gymnastics and 18 senior members, including former President Steve Penny, submitted their resignations. The then president of Michigan State University, Lou Anna Simon, and the athletic director also resigned and left the university. However, resigning did not mean past mistakes could be overlooked. Previous whistleblowers had been silenced, threatened, told they were receiving treatment, and sometimes even sent back to face further abuse. The school silenced the victims instead of contacting law enforcement agencies. This allowed Larry to roam free. When faced with comprehensive investigations, Michigan State University chose to settle, ultimately paying $500 million to 332 victims. The Michigan Attorney General announced the end of the university investigation. However, former President Simon, who prosecutors alleged had lied to the police, would continue to be investigated. If proven guilty, she would not escape legal punishment. As for former USA Gymnastics President Steve Penny, his relationship with Larry was far from normal. He had repeatedly concealed allegations against Larry. After the case was exposed, he was suspected of destroying and fabricating evidence related to Larry. Consequently, the police arrested him. If the charge of evidence tampering is proven, he could face 2 to 10 years in prison. His trial has yet to begin. A few days after Penny's arrest, USA Gymnastics permanently banned Steve Penny from the organization. As for John Geddert, the coach of the U.S. gymnastics team, he had worked closely with Larry and co-founded the Twistars Gymnastics Club in Michigan in 1996. This club had a private room where Larry repeatedly assaulted athletes. After the scandal broke, John was suspended. Investigations revealed that he also faced numerous charges, totaling 24 felony counts. In reality, the number of victims in this largest sports scandal in history is staggering. As the investigation continued, the number of people brave enough to come forward and accuse Larry exceeded expectations. To date, over 500 women have come forward. In 2021, more than 500 victims reached a settlement with USA Gymnastics and the U.S. Olympic Committee, receiving $380 million in compensation. Combined with the earlier $500 million settlement from Michigan State University, the total compensation amounted to an astonishing $880 million. Although they received compensation, the survivors stated that no amount of money could make up for the trauma they endured. They hope the government will soon implement reforms to prevent similar tragedies from happening again. Today's story has come to an end. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe and like to support me.